need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
My first question comes from one of my really special friends. I have a really special friend of over 2 decades, Mr. Tim in New Mexico, writing all the way from Santa Fe. And he moved long ago and I miss him very much, but I'm glad we can stay connected through interior design in this podcast. So Tim, you can always call me with questions, but I also love answering questions on my podcast because I do double duty. I get to talk to my friend and I get to create content for all of you. So let's see if Tim's question can illuminate a situation that you're working on. Tim writes, "Hi Betsy, I have a mid-century home built in 1962 with unusual window sizes, 82 inches wide by 24 inches high for one example. When I purchased this home, I noticed that the blinds are of all different eras and different quality. Some may be as old as the home or near that age. The blinds are metal and yellowing. Others are cheap plastic, and some of the wide windows have 2 sets of blinds because of the extreme width, though some do not. But those are older blinds. There are 6 of these windows around the house, plus some more normal shapes in the kitchen. I'm thinking of purchasing custom cellular shades that have a light filtering option and a room darkening option for the bedroom, and perhaps just light filtering for the common spaces. The problem is the expense. I'm looking at up to $400 per window. I vaguely remember you saying you don't like cellular shades. Is there something better? Mini blinds seem very popular, but they also seem cheap and, well, a thoughtless choice. Like, they are the gray sweatbands of blinds. What do you recommend for my windows that are wide and short, or even just wide and a normal height? Help! Attached are photos of the space before I purchased the home. I am still putting finishing touches on this space, so nothing from my time living here is really available." Okay. So I'm very familiar with this space, Tim, because I've given you some advice before, and I just loved working on transforming this space because mid-century modern is actually what got me into interior design. I love the Brady Bunch. I always thought I'd live in an MCM home. I have some metal mid-century modern doll houses, and I love to, in my free time, don't judge, go sit over there on my circular table in my cottage and play with the dollhouse. I know, isn't that silly? But I never had a dollhouse as a child, and I always wanted a mid-century modern home, and now I have a mid-century modern home. I mean, not really. I live in an antique home, but I have this metal dollhouse and I can live out all of my fantasies and just have a blast rearranging. Can you believe an interior designer in her free time rearranges dollhouses? But at least those darn dolls, they don't talk back. They love all my advice. They are living their best life, even though sometimes they get a little dusty. Okay. Anyway, yes, your windows are unusual. And I do think it's a good idea to treat windows in different areas differently. If I need opacity, if I want sort of that blackout feel in the bedroom, then I may need a different type of treatment than I need in, say, the living room where I just want privacy, but I do want that light to come in. So I think that's really smart. And I do think these 7 feet long by 2 feet high windows are certainly a challenge because drapes can look really silly on those, right? Like big old sideburns with a tiny little mustache at the top. I'm not sure, right? But it's just not a great look, even if you love sideburns like I do. So here's the reason I don't like the cellular shades. I don't like the cellular shades, and yes, I have them throughout my house now because they were left over from the previous person, but they do tend to yellow over time and they get quite dusty. And it's hard to get in those honeycomb style pockets to clean out that dust, especially if it was 8 feet long. Can you imagine what could accumulate in there? In fact, in mine, I'm in the middle of the forest and there's like some bugs in there. I had to take off all the cellular blinds and shake it out because there's like some dead whoozy whatsits in there. They are just not my favorite. If I can't take a damp cloth and wipe off my blind, I'm really not into it. That being said, you can take a damp cloth and wipe off a mini blind, but I am really not into that. I love a natural woven shade. But that may not be the best solution here because they have a big header, like a Roman blind. And so you're going to lose a lot of that 2 feet of height with that large header. So for me, that's a no go. But what I would recommend is a roller blind for these. They'll have a very slim profile at the top, so you could fully engage them and move them all the way up while hardly losing any of that beautiful window light. And they're so lightweight that you can have really long ones without having to separate it into two. I think the roller blind is the absolute way to go for both spaces because they certainly make ones with different opacities. They make roller blinds that can be sort of 2-in-1 in terms of light filtering, but also opaque depending on the setting. And I just think it's going to be the perfect solution. Now, when I'm selecting a roller blind, I don't choose anything pure white because it can look dirty so quickly. So I may do like a very pale gray, something lighter than the wall color if the wall color is gray, or a very pale off-white if the wall color is a little bit deeper than that. But the problem with white is it just shows every imperfection. There's absolutely no room for issue. And if you're worried about this investment, then we want to make sure we have a lot of longevity. So I love to get samples of the window treatment. Typically, they'll have some small swatches there. I take it home and I put it through the ringer. In fact, I am looking to get a chair and I'm looking to get a dining table, and they had samples of the materials. And I got a sample of the marble for the dining table. And I literally, the minute I got it in the mail, I took a wet glass and I put it right on top to see if it left any ring, any scarring. And of course, it did. And of course, mama don't got time to constantly be sealing her marble, so I will not be getting that table. And when I get the fabric swatches for my massaging recline chair, I know it sounds like it's going to be hideous, but it actually looks very low profile. And as you know, I need a massage. So when I get those samples from Wayfair, I'm going to be spilling wine on that performance fabric. I'm going to be scratching it. I'm going to be doing all these things that I can anticipate might happen while I'm getting my massage in my chair. So I can ensure that it's as durable as I hope it will be, so it will be worth that investment. Tim, I hope that helped. You know, I'm always here to help, and I just love hearing from you. So send me questions. I am here, and you are living my MCM dreams. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy, who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller, who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.